In this video, I'm gonna teach you how to write any piece of code from scratch. But for many, writing their first piece of code from scratch can feel like an insurmountable challenge. And if you're watching this video, you're most likely in a similar situation. You want to take that first step towards becoming a full-blown programmer. But taking the leap can be incredibly difficult. We as humans tend to take the path of least resistance, and that usually entails following tutorials. That gives us the feeling of learning, as if we're making progress. Whilst on the inside, we know that we're frauds. And if you cannot abandon this tutorial hell as soon as possible, you may never be able to leave. It's at this stage I unfortunately see a lot of people abandoning programming. They simply find it to be too difficult to take the leap. But I can assure you that with some time, anyone can write any piece of code at any skill level. Although my method may seem simple and absurdly obvious, most of you are not doing it, or at least not properly. Before I teach you my method, I want to tell you about my programming journey. Although I am now a full-time Unity developer, it didn't always seem like it was going to turn out that way. I gave up on programming a bunch of times. It just came to a point where it was too frustrating. And this kept happening, and I didn't understand why. Like most of you, I just felt this insane feeling inside of me, like I wasn't learning anything at all. And although I didn't want to accept it, that was the truth. I wasn't learning. I was parroting. I wasn't absorbing any of the content I was watching. I was copying it. And that was hard to accept. With a lot of force and repetition, I was able to force myself into a position where I started to learn. But I didn't do it nicely. I'm completely self-taught. And I used this method I'm about to teach you right now to learn everything I know now. And my method can most aptly be described with a common saying: divide and conquer. A lot of your ideas that you have right now are high level. They are all-encompassing. Like in case of a video game, making a first-person shooter. Although that might seem like a task to you, in reality, that is a large list of problems that need to be solved separately. But you are stuck in the mindset of tutorials. You are thinking in terms of high-level concepts. So how do we use divide and conquer to actually make it easier for us to create something based of our high-level ideas? Like the naming suggests, we need to divide. We need to separate our high-level idea into many lower-level ideas. We need to simplify. Instead of thinking in making an entire game, you want to think in making components of games. Let's continue with the FPS example. Instead of saying, I want to make a first-person shooter, we can begin by saying, I want to be able to read keyboard inputs, because this is naturally a part of the first-person shooter, because the player needs to be able to interact with the game. But that point of being able to interact with the game specifically from a keyboard is not interlaced into, I want to make an FPS. So you have to take that high-level concept, you have to find all of the minute features and details that you are going to have to implement. Now the lower level ideas, like getting keyboard inputs, making a player character move, moving the camera. These are now your high-level ideas. So we do the method again. Okay, instead of I want to get keyboard inputs, let's say I want to get the input of the W key from the keyboard. These are incredibly easy to Google or find in the Unity documentation. Suddenly, you don't have to know these things because the questions are at such a low level that their answers are obvious. And by building up many of these obvious answers, you get to a stage where you've completed one level of high-level ideas. Now you just have to do that for all of your high-level concepts until you reach the final concept of creating an FPS. This is an incredibly simple system, but what it doesn't account for is time, because all of this separating, thinking through, research, and implementation will take time. And in general, it's this time commitment that is the real restraining factor for a lot of people. spending hundreds of hours on learning a skill you're not sure you will enjoy is a hard sell. And for a lot of people, programming is not enjoyable. It's difficult. It takes a lot of time. You easily get stuck on tasks for weeks. But it's also incredibly rewarding once you've reached a point where you can make almost anything from scratch. Although I primarily make video games, I can make almost anything when it comes to programming. The skills are so transferable between language to language. Once you've reached escape velocity, it is incredibly easy to divert into different directions. If I had the will, I could easily jump over and start making websites. But that's all up to you. And if you never take the leap and actually start writing code from scratch in any scenario, you will never have this opportunity. I spent a decade trying to teach myself how to make video games, and I have succeeded. And with that effort, I can now make anything. That is the value that programming has given me. I have studied machine learning before. I have made websites. I have made an incredibly diverse amount of stuff. But the only thing I've really learned is programming. But it's given me so many opportunities. Why are you waiting? There are tons of other resources you can use to learn programming, and almost all of them are better than a YouTube tutorial. Look at books, look at documentation, but please don't over-rely on tutorials. And I'm just here to remind you of my mistakes. Don't repeat what I've done, repeat what I'm doing. If you like this video and learned something, I'll see you in the next one. And if you want to learn why you should not be using Unity to learn game development, check out this video. If nothing else, like if you liked, otherwise, bye.